Alright you guys, we did it again. We just purchased an Ericson 35 Mark II. Remember in our second episode that I talked about this boat? I thought it was on my short list. Yeah, and here we are. So I'll give you a quick tour. As you can see, I have somewhat standing headroom in here. It's not too bad. So I'm 6 foot tall, I got shoes on, excuse me. That might be, say, about half an inch or inch. So yeah, I can stand up here and that all the way up front of the boat. This boat in particular is not in such great shape. It came with an Atomic 4, which I'm not a big fan of, as you know. But it comes with a lot of instrumentation and other good stuff. So here's the nav station. This has a really nice pilot berth. And that cushion you see in there, inside of there, it goes actually onto the table to lower the table. I'll show you a photo of that. So it makes this almost for a queen size bed here, right here in the middle. So nav station got some pretty sweet instrumentation. We got radar inside, a radar shark rudder combination inside and outside at the helm. So the galley is pretty well shut, so there's not much going on here. The electric of the boat and electronics needs to be rebuilt. Moving forward, she's got a really nice head, unfortunately in bad shape. It smells pretty musky in here, it's not really nice. So there's a lot of dry rot in the bulkheads. This one here got sistered up already from both sides and reinforced because it had obviously in that chain plate here massive dry rot that is typical for Ericson. So if you ever look at one, pay attention to that. They got a nice big hatch here in the main saloon. This here extends underneath. That's my second starter battery that I still have to put in. So this extends and makes a nice sea berth. And we got a good sized hanging locker in here. And then the forward the V-berth, that is of course full with sails, has a privacy door here. So that makes for a separate cabin, and you also got a little hatch. And also a hanging locker. So all in all, not terrible, you know. Like I said, sailing, good old boats, and the Ericson 35-2 has always been on my short list. So here she is, a Wallaby farm boat. She got a track here, I believe that's for spinnaker. Not 100% sure though. She's got decent galley space if everything would be operational and put together as normal. But really sweet is actually about this boat, it's incredible deck space. So I'll show you the cockpit first and then we'll walk forward to the bow. Okay, but before we are stepping outside, let's have a quick look here at her specifications and the out of that resulting performance calculations. So the Ericson 35 Mark II has always been on my short list. I think it's a very, very sweet design. It's a beautiful, good old sailboat that has always been on my short list. And as a matter of fact, we have used this boat, this very design, in a previous episode when we talked about performance calculations in general as an example, because it is such a well-rounded design. There's a few shortcomings here, a few things, as always, that are maybe not optimum, but for the most part I really like it. So it's a fin keel with spade rudder. That's number one right there. The rudder is not protected by anything. It doesn't have a scarecrow, so it's just a spade rudder. However, it makes it very maneuverable in tight quarters that way. It's a masthead sloop, so foresail goes all the way up to the mast top, and then it was originally equipped with a universal atomic 430 horsepower gas inboard engine. And the boat that we purchased also has still the original engine in it. I'm personally not a big fan of that because I don't like gasoline vapors to collect in the bilge area where you can potentially blow yourself up with them. You have to run a bilge blower all the time, and I personally like inboard diesel engines for that reason better, because the fuel is safe and does not create a hazard inside the boat like gasoline does. So when we're talking about engines, my personal preference would be an inboard diesel or an outboard gasoline engine. But we had an idea when we purchased the boat and thought we would maybe go electric and pull the good old Atomic 4 out and do an electric sailboat conversion. So that's still floating around. It was just an idea, and I don't know if we were pulling through with this, but that was the intention. I know there's a lot of fans out there of the Atomic 4 engine, and I can see why. They're really easy to work on. And around the Great Lakes and fresh water, they are actually not bad at all. I mean, many sailors have sailed for many years safely with them. And as long as you obey the safety procedures and blowing the bilge on everything, there shouldn't be much of a problem. So her water capacity with 25 gallons is about adequate for a coastal cruiser. That is what she was designed for. But as we progress later on into the performance calculations, we'll see she has a little bit of blue water capability in her design too. So that's very interesting. The construction is fiberglass, hand-laid solid, made from 2 half shelves and then joined at the center line. So always look closely at the center line of the boat. Then the deck on top, and the deck is a sandwich design with a balsa core, so relatively light, certainly lighter than it would be with a plywood core. So that's good. The keel is in the Mark II, the keel ballast, the lead is encapsulated. So first of all, it's lead, not cast iron, and it is encapsulated, not bolted underneath the boat. That happens later on with the Mark III. That is when they elected to go away from this and actually, cast a proper or make a proper lead keel that would be bolted underneath the boat. I personally like that encapsulated ballast because you don't have to worry about keel bolts here. And with a very old boat, that is always a concern because you don't know really in what conditions the keel bolts are in, especially in that area that you cannot see where they are going through the stub. So it's always that big question mark here. The boat was in production from 1969 to 1981, and there have been about 500 builds, as far as I know. Ericson Yachts USA was the company that built this boat, and the designer is Bruce King. So, her specifications: the length overall almost 35 foot, and her length of the waterline significantly shorter. That is because she got gracious overhangs, and I personally like that. I think it looks pretty. And there's also an interesting little design feature here that Bruce King came up with, and that is that white transom. So the idea is once the boat heels to a certain extent, it will rest on that white transom and also prolong this way its waterline significantly, which equates in speed. That means faster boat. Longer waterline, faster boat. So very good. Narrow beam, only of 10, and she sits deep in the water. You can see that here. This is a boat that will slice through the waves instead of bouncing off on top of them. So I think that's good. That usually makes for a relatively sea-kindly motion. Her sail area in total of 532 square foot, or about 50 square meters, a little shy of that, is very well balanced for the displacement. That is not too much and not too little. I think it's pretty good. She has a draft of less than 5 foot, which I think is great for a 35 footer. I like that. That's not excessive. Her displacement at 11,600 pounds. There might be some that are a little heavier, because you see here the ballast is 5,000 pounds, and some owners might have elected to add a little bit more lead on top of the actual ballast in the bilge area. You have there very little space left there under the table area, CT area, and that might be the case with a few of those boats out there, that they wanted to make them a bit stiffer for racing. Because she has a very good secondary stability with a narrow beam and whatnot, but primary stability is rather, yeah, shall we say, tender, for a boat of that size. So sail area to displacement. Let's look here at the performance calculations. Not quite 17. For modern standards, maybe a little bit underpowered, but sufficient with hull shape and so forth and so on. This will definitely do it. And you can fly also a Spinnaker to get her going in light air, so it's not a problem. This can always be changed relatively easily in your favor. Her ballast to displacement at 43.10 originally is on the slightly stiffer side, but still around that neighborhood of 40, where we are, or where we like to be, let's say, with a weekend coastal cruiser club racer. That would be adequate. And then displacement to length of 300 tells you basically that this is not a cheap construction. It is a decent thickness of laminate. The boat itself is built relatively strong. So this is really, they didn't skim out here. It is a really decent production quality for, a 60s, 70s production sailboat, designed actually as a coastal cruiser. And a comfort ratio of almost 30, and then that in combination with the capsize screening formula of being significantly under 2 at 1.77 tells you she has a little bit of blue water capability in her. And a lot of people have sailed those boats across the Pacific, going from, I don't know, somewhere in California to Hawaii or something like that. So she is definitely capable of handling blue water. That is definitely doable with this boat. And sail number of 1.72 and her hull speed here at 6.89. She's not a snail, not a rocket. She's right there in the middle of the road. It's a pretty good and well balanced design, and you can see her pounds inch immersion at 922.903, while she has a narrow beam. So that is all you get here, but everything is really, really well balanced. Nothing is excessive here, and that is why I like to put a green box around it. I think it is an overall really sweet design. But enough about that. There was a lot of number talk. Let's step outside and have a look at the cockpit and the deck layout. So first thing that you might notice, high bridge deck. Decent size drains. An emergency tiller hookup. It is actually a full-size tiller. It goes all the way up to here. Traveler, and then another separated area. Drains, electronics, engine instruments, autopilot, radar and chart plotter underneath here. The autopilot works. Let's see, go to auto, watch the steering wheel, increments of 10. So that's sweet to have. Stand by again. The cockpit is insanely huge. I mean, that thing is freaking enormous. Check this out. size self-tailing winches. Spin a couple anchor furling unit. Multiple clutches and winches at the mast. Good size locker space. She even got refrigeration. And even more anchor and locker space. And her wind instrumentation and speed. Unfortunately not all of that works, but most of it, so that's pretty decent. And last but not least, the part that I dislike the most about this boat, and you guessed it folks, the engine. I know there will be a lot of bashing now. I understand a lot of you sail with atomic 4 engines and love them because they're very easy to maintain. I get this, but I just don't like the gasoline fumes on board. It's just me. So batteries underneath here, starter battery. That's right now just one bank in here. I take for now that off real quick here. Yeah, and that's the old Atomic 4. It runs, but not very good. Yeah, we'll do a little oil change on that and then see if we can improve the situation a little bit by tuning her up a bit with new spark plugs and oil change. The oil is pretty thin. So here's the dipstick. Yeah, the fuel tank is in this boat underneath the cockpit sole, but it has been decommissioned. It's been a metal tank, so it wasn't good anymore. And the former owner elected to do something about it and put in a plastic tank, which I think is not a terrible idea. There's a holding tank underneath here. I'm not sure about, oh yeah, water actually in a bladder also underneath the cockpit floor for now, but that also doesn't work 100% correctly. And then we got a charger inverter here with a battery bank underneath that stove area. So it's kind of a strange setup, but it seems to work. So another thing I'm not too crazy about is basically that she has still gate valves, and most of them are seized up into place. So that's another bummer. Would be better if she had ball valves, and the only ball valve I could find is the engine raw water intake, and that's about it. Everything else still gate valves. There's always something, right? And the head here really needs a complete do-over. That's awful. But it's a good size though. Once that has been renovated, it should be good. As always, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time here again.
on sailing good old boats. Cheers!